Inspiring illustrations. Keturah, a mysterious woman from the Old Testament, was a concubine and wife of the biblical patriarch Abraham. As mentioned in some versions of the Bible, Keturah's story is quickly mentioned in the book of Genesis, chapter 25, and in the first book of Chronicles, chapter 1. Her story is full of controversies, subject to discussion and divergent opinions. The text says that Abraham married Keturah after the death of his first wife, Sarah, and had 6 sons, Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak and Shuah. Was Keturah really Abraham's wife? Let's dive into Keturah's impactful story and learn more about her life and descendants. And in this video you will understand everything that the Bible says about Keturah. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, take this opportunity and subscribe now. Don't forget to activate all notifications and leave your like. Let's start the video. The name Keturah has Hebrew origin and means incense, to make sacrificial smoke or perfume. There are several rabbinic interpretations for the name Keturah, including that Keturah was perfumed with commandments and good deeds, more delicious than any spice, and her actions were as beautiful as incense. These interpretations demonstrate how valuable and meaningful the name Keturah is. Keturah's story is quickly mentioned in 2 passages of the Hebrew Bible, in the book of Genesis and in the first book of Chronicles. In addition, she is also mentioned in the book Jewish Antiquities, written by the Roman historian Flavius Josephus in the 1st century, as well as in other Jewish writings such as the Talmud, Midrash, Targum and Bereshit. Jewish theologians and philosophers also mention Keturah in their writings. These various sources offer a broad and interesting view of Keturah's story. Keturah was one of Abraham's women, but it is not known for certain whether she was a wife or concubine. In the ancient East it was common for the head of a tribe or clan to have several women besides the main wife. He could have secondary wives and concubines. The difference between a secondary wife and a concubine lay in the legal status of their children. The children of secondary wives would be entitled to their father's inheritance and wealth, while the children of concubines would not necessarily have this right unless they were benefited by their parents' generosity. In Genesis chapter 25 verse 1 it is mentioned that Abraham married Keturah, making it understood that Keturah was a secondary wife of Abraham. However, in the first book of Chronicles chapter 1 verse 32, she is referred to as Abraham's concubine. This leaves doubts and controversial comments without biblical support, as it is not possible to determine with certainty whether Keturah was a secondary wife or a concubine. Another important observation to make in the story of Keturah is that if chapters 24 and 25 of the book of Genesis are considered to be organized chronologically, then the relationship between Abraham and Keturah would have occurred after the death of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Abraham had 6 sons with Keturah in old age, sons near the age of 140. Looking at Genesis chapter 21, verse 5, when Abraham had his son Isaac, he was 100 years old. This was already something surprising and miraculous. However, Abraham having a son near the age of 140 was even more impressive. We must remember that the Bible contains many accounts of miraculous events. In addition, the longevity of biblical characters is often greater than the current life expectancy. Therefore, although it may seem unlikely from a current scientific point of view, we cannot completely rule out the possibility of Abraham having children at an advanced age. It is believed that Abraham would have rejuvenated to the point of continuing to generate children even in old age. The Abrahamic covenant gave him the certainty of fulfilling this promise, that he would be the father of nations, as described in Genesis, chapter 17, verse 4. One proof of this would be Ishmael, a son generated at the age of 86, unlike his grandfather Nahor, who generated his father Terah at the age of 29. The miracle of rejuvenation would have happened exactly in Abraham. He was chosen to be the father of many nations. Abraham had the promise of multiplication, and the fact that he started generating children at an advanced age can be understood as a sign that he had vigor to generate children until his death. To better understand the historical context of Abraham, we will provide a video about Terah, Abraham's father. Just watch the video that is now appearing at the top of the screen. It is also possible that Sarah did not accept that Abraham would marry again while she was alive due to the serious problems and implications she had with her servant Hagar. Sarah's stress and wear were so great that she sent Abraham to expel the Egyptian Hagar and her son Ishmael, as mentioned in Genesis chapter 21 verse 10. This could have led Abraham to wait until after Sarah's death to remarry and have children with Keturah. Then they affirmed that Keturah was Abraham's wife because they believed that Keturah was Rebekah's servant. Keturah and Rebekah were both Aramean women and lived in Haran, land of Abraham's relatives. Although they lived in pagan land, they served and feared the true God. The biblical text says, "One day Abraham called his oldest servant responsible for everything he owned and said, 'Put your hand under my thigh and swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and earth, that you will not allow my son Isaac to marry any woman from this country of Canaan where I am living. Instead, go to my homeland and choose a wife for Isaac from among my relatives.'" Genesis chapter 24 between verses 2 to 4. From the point of view, it is understood that Abraham was concerned about the possibility of his son Isaac marrying a Canaanite woman. He feared that Isaac might be influenced by pagan customs and idolatrous practices of these peoples who were polytheistic and worshipped many gods. On the other hand, Abraham was monotheistic and believed in one God. He wanted his son to follow in his footsteps and keep his faith in God. That is why Abraham sent his servant to find a wife for Isaac among his relatives in his homeland to prevent him from marrying a Canaanite woman who might influence him to adopt different religious practices. The biblical text also says that then they allowed Rebekah and the woman who had been her nurse to leave with Abraham's servant and his companions. They blessed Rebekah, saying, "May you, our sister, be the mother of millions. May your descendants conquer the cities of their enemies." Then Rebekah and her maids prepared, mounted camels, and followed Abraham's servant. It is affirmed that Keturah was the nurse who breastfed Rebekah in infancy, an Aramean woman, with the same lineage as Abraham's family. Therefore, they also affirmed that Abraham's marriage to Keturah took place at the same time that Isaac married Rebekah. If it is considered that chapters 24 and 25 of the book of Genesis are anachronistic, that is, they are not organized chronologically, then it is not possible to determine with precision the date of Abraham's relationship with Keturah and the birth of their 6 children with her. Some scholars interpret Genesis chapter 24 verse 36 indicating that Abraham already had other children besides Ishmael and Isaac when his servant went to fetch Rebekah to be Isaac's wife. This suggests that Abraham's relationship with Keturah could have happened before Sarah's death. However, this is just another interpretation and there is no definitive answer on the subject. The apocryphal book of Jubilees mentions in chapter 19 verse 11 the story of Keturah. According to the book, Abraham would have chosen Keturah among the servants of his house because Hagar had died before Sarah. However, this is just another interpretation and there is no definitive answer on the subject. Another observation by some scholars is that Keturah should not be confused with Hagar. They are not the same person and have different stories and contexts. There are many divergences among theologians in saying that Keturah and Hagar were the same person, but their stories and names have different origins from different peoples. Therefore, in this analysis it is understood that both the descendants of Keturah and the descendants of the Egyptian Hagar mixed through marriage, forming a numerous Arab descent and consolidating the promise that God made to Abraham. Another important fact in Keturah's story is to understand her descent. To understand the origin of biblical characters such as Keturah, it is essential to analyze the writings through Hebrew and Aramaic content. Abraham married Keturah and had 6 sons and 7 grandchildren. The sons were Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak and Shuah. And their grandchildren were Sheba, Dedan, Ephah, Epher, Hanok, Abida and Eldah. This information can be found in the book of Genesis and in the first book of Chronicles. Keturah's sons became progenitors of Arab tribes who lived east and south of Israel. These descendants of Abraham and Keturah formed peoples who inhabited the Arabian Peninsula and show kinship between Israelites and other peoples in the region. Keturah's story and her descent are impactful and show how Abraham's lineage spread across many nations. Through his descent with Sarah, Hagar and Keturah, Abraham became the father of many nations, fulfilling the promise God had made to him. Thank you for watching. I hope this video has been edifying for you. Remember to subscribe to the channel, if you haven't already, so you don't miss any content. I suggest you watch the video about who Melchizedek was. You will understand why he is so important to us. God bless. See you next time.